And she said, "You are the angels. You are the ones who will have your memories restored. Coming next year, there's going to be something happening. The next year is the year of resurrection and liberation. And Raymond has told me something's going to change on the entire planet and the earth will never be the same. Could this be a giant solar flare that many people will have past life memories? Many people may be taken up, have contacts. People who in their hearts are connected to God will be evacuated. This is something they do all the time. They can evacuate worlds with billions of people. There are motherships and transports. They did this in Atlantis, and they did it in the book number 5. So what they do is they come in the evening, right before the big cataclysm. They take people. The chosen people choose themselves by their connection to God. So these evacuations will occur, and this will be your last lifetime. You will ascend to planetoids, asteroids, moons, space platforms.
Hi, this is Akanksshaa. If you're new here, please subscribe to my channel. If you resonate with me, please like, comment, and share. Welcome to Multidimensional Soul Podcast and a Talk Show. On this show, we talk about deep spiritual and mystical experiences of people which we normally shy away talking about. We are more than our physical body. We are spiritual beings on a human journey, and we discuss how a soul exists on multiple dimensions. We discuss science, technology, and spirituality point of views and perspectives on this show. Our purpose is to open our minds to limitless possibilities and our hearts to love and shine the light within bright. Our guest today is Robert Potter, or Rob. Rob considers himself be blessed with many extraordinary experiences of a spiritual nature. He is now 67 years old, and he realizes that he has had a lot of training from various masters of different lineages in his past lives, and now he's integrating it in this life. These teachings include face-to-face contact with extraterrestrial beings, with ascended masters like Mahavatar Babaji. These great beings have imparted very powerful knowledge and wisdom through Nada Shringa or neuro life illumination and what is known as Shabda or sound current. Rob's life has been intense inner calling to realize the truth of God through various disciplines and various practices. His current mentor, guide, and best friend is Dr. Raymond Keller. We have had 2 episodes of Dr. Ray Keller or Cosmic Ray on our podcast. If you haven't watched them, I highly recommend that you watch them too. Rob and I talked about his spiritual experiences and how they began at a very young age of 8 when he was contacted telepathically by Galactic Federation of Light. And he's had several teachers like physicist Dr. Frederick William Bell, and they together traveled the world sharing knowledge about pyramid. They shared pyramid science and purpose of extraterrestrials visiting the earth. The advanced technology involving pyramids, crystals, and lasers of healing and sound. Rob also mentioned about the work being done to stabilize the Earth's tectonic plates using natural energies. Rob shared his experiences with spiritual mentors and teachers, like how he had encounter with Mahavatar Babaji. He also shared his experiences of out-of-body travel and encounters with Venusians, which began since 1980s. Rob described the 7 planes of existence within individuals and the soul's evolution across forms, and he emphasized the importance of meditation and one-pointed concentration to connect with the creator, the source. Rob also played the message of Venusian Queen and the importance of global unity and angels. a very enriching conversation, a long conversation, and I hope you love this conversation. Thank you so much for giving so much love to this podcast and to all our guests and co creating this new earth along with us. Do like, comment, and share this knowledge so it is spread across. We have with us a very special guest today, Rob Potter. A very warm welcome, Rob, to Multidimensional Soul Talk Show and a podcast. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Um, I feel a great, deep connection to India, and the spiritual heritage of India is registers the highest spiritual knowledge of any nation on the planet because of the great lineage of the masters of India is really it's merging with the West, but the lineage of the Upanishads, the Rig, Yajur, Samaveda, and the great teachings of India are some of the oldest and the finest spiritual teachings in the world. So it's an honor to talk with you today on other aspects of spirituality.
Oh, I'm already excited to have this conversation because you are combining Eastern spirituality with Western spirituality as well as science. So, looking
Yes.
forward to uncovering a lot of the depth of your knowledge.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
yeah, let's start with your spiritual journey. I understand that you were contacted by extraterrestrial beings at a very early age. So, can you talk a little bit about your spiritual journey, how you started?
As I said, said on my website, my very first contact was when I was 8 years old. I was living in a place called near Pasadena, California, called Altadena. My father or my mother had moved away from a man she wanted to marry, and so he finally asked her to marry him, and we moved back down to Laguna Beach, where I was raised most of my life. But it was in 1964. I was about 7 years old, and I was going to this preschool. There was a lot of racial tension there, and I don't really understand it at that time. Um, uh, the town where I grew up in, I didn't really see black or white. There was not a lot of tension anywhere. We did have black people, in our town and everywhere. We had Middle Eastern people and Chinese and Japanese, and it was quite a mixing pot, which America is. But at that point, it was a little crazy. And I remember I was asking my mom, I was thinking the world is so kind of crazy. I said, I was kind of thinking, what's the bigger picture? I said, Mom, what's out there in the universe? I mean, and she says, Rob, it goes, she said, Robbie, it goes on forever. And I go, no, Mom, it can't go on forever. And she goes, what do you think is out there? A brick wall. And I go, well, and then she said, what's on the other side? And so I started thinking, and I walked down. I lived in the basement, and I walked down into the room, and it was just getting dark, and there was a window, and I sat there, and I was looking out the window, and I was pondering, and a light maneuvered into the window, was right there, and received my first telepathic communication. And they basically said, look, yes, this is my first thought thinking about higher spiritual knowledge. And they basically said everything is going to come to a head. And at some point, there will be an evacuation. And now I'll fast forward to the age of 16. I was living in Laguna Beach. It was kind of like the birth lottery. It's a beautiful town. It's on the most beautiful beaches of Southern California and pretty much in the entire United States due to the weather. Coves and extremely beautiful. And went to school, and I had read Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain, and I was talking to a friend and this girl, and I said I was really interested in pyramids. I was thinking about telekinesis and the spiritual development and the science of it. And this girl goes, "Pyramids, Robbie? I know the Pyramid Man." And I said, "The Pyramid Man? Really?" So she gave me his address, and I went up to his house. There was a pyramid outside on the corner of his house. And it turns out I went into the home. He was not home, but Dr. Frederick William Bell, and he was a child genius. His great uncle invented the telephone, Alexander Graham Bell, and his father invented the automatic transmission and the alternator for Henry Ford. He was living in Ann Arbor, Michigan, next to the Ford motor plant, and he was always the smartest kid in the room. At the age of 15, he was not in school. He was working at the University of Michigan in a linear collider like CERN, but smaller, where he was observing photons or like sending a deuteron and aiming it at a calcium particle and watching the cloud and looking into the what we would see the quantum world of quarks and hadrons and mesons and muons and these type of things. So very smart. And then at the age of 16, which is illegal, the government came to his house on his 16th birthday. They got him out of school and they took him home and said, "Grab your things. We are conscripting you into the Air Force." It's illegal, but they did it. So he came out to Santa Barbara, California, and he got a PhD in physics before he was 17 years old. So now he starts working on very advanced electrical equipment. And at the age of 20, in 1963, he was stationed on the westernmost point of the United States at Point Reyes, California. This is where the world's top radar, brand new radar set. And the watch commander said, "Wow, this whole new radar set's going in next week. Who's in charge of it?" And they said, "You see that 20-year-old kid? He's in charge. Anything goes wrong, Private Bell is going to fix it." So sure enough, they get the radars up. And then you remember what happened in 1963? The Cuban Missile Crisis. So UFOs were spotted coming down. They were tracking them. They would come down and they would turn off the magnetic pathways and they would shoot down to Cuba. So he was a young kid and he knew all the codes and everything. He says, "Wow." So he filled up the report. It's called the DDS 332, Unidentified Flying Object Form. And he turned it in and they go, "Sir, wow, it's amazing. We saw that." And the watch commander took it and he burned it and put it in the trash can. He said, "Sir, you can't do that. Section code 324. This is public property and this is blah, blah, blah." So he did this every day for 2 weeks. He was incensed that they would do this. And they told him, they said, "Bell, we've been doing this for, almost 40 years. So it's not going to stop." So he got a little drunk one night, took his motorcycle, rode around the base at 3 a.m. And the next day he went in and he filled out the form. And he says, at the end of the shift, he says, and the commander inside the radar set said, "Bell, did you see a UFO today?" He said, "Yes, sir. We all have been for the last 2 weeks." And he waved his hand and 2 military police came in and put him in a straitjacket. And they took him to the mental hospital. So he talked to the doctor and he said, "Tell them I want an honorable discharge." They gave him an honorable discharge. And the very next day he left the Air Force. So what happens with a genius scientist, electrical guy at 20 years old, whose great uncle invented the telephone and has been studying the shock wave of the atomic bomb, a great physicist? He gets a call from NASA. So this is at the time of Apollo 1. They were building the very first rocket of NASA. So he was working on the not the lunar, but the module where the astronauts would be. And again, he's there maybe 2 months and he sees bad electrical workmanship, low quality. And he kept complaining, "They're going to have a fire. You're going to have a fire." He kept talking to the guys and they go, "You don't know what you're talking about, Bell. Shut your mouth, you snotty-nosed little kid." So finally, he confronted the German scientist in charge of NASA, Werner von Braun. He said, "Sir, you're going to have a fire." And he said, "Look, someone take care of this. Look into this." And the next day, he was fired. Okay, so of course, here he gets fired again for being a whistleblower and telling the truth. So, where do you go after you get fired from the Air Force, an honorable discharge, and fired from NASA? Well, you get calls from Northrop Grumman, McDonnell Douglas. You get, you get called from the big manufacturing companies, and he ended up working on the Saturn rockets and other things like that. So 2 years later, his attorney called him because he had filed suit, and they said, "You won your lawsuit." And he said, "Oh," and he got a big check, 2 years pay, and they gave him $77,000 in punitive damage. And he said, Werner von Braun wants to speak with you. He'll be calling you later today. So Werner von Braun says, "Hello, hello." He said, "Mr. Bell, this is Werner von Braun. We're sorry we made the mistake. We would like to make you the head of all of NASA electrical quality control. You will be in charge to make sure that all electrical on rockets, on space, will be in charge." And he said, "No, thank you." So he showed that he has integrity. So I met him at 16. He came into the house, he was gone. And I found out that he had an Indian teacher. His teacher was named Syringe Roy. And he was from Benares, India. And he's had been teaching Fred, and he had an ashram in San Francisco on Haight and Ashbury. He was the guru of the Flower Children movement, and he was teaching the teachings of the Siva Kalpa. And so Fred Bell was initiated into the spiritual lineages of his master. A friend of mine had told me that he had after his initiation, he had a burning log, and they gave him a name. His name was Agni, and he held a burning log on fire, and he held it around and gave arti because he had developed a city. So at the time that I met him, I think he was let's see, that was in 1974. So he was 30 years old when I met him, and he had just come in with his first batch of golden plated pyramids. So here I began to work with a master scientist, a physicist, who was very balanced. And he told me the first thing to do, he said, "I want you to read 2 books. I want you to read Autobiography of a Yogi, and I want you to read Initiation, Human and Solar." And this began my spiritual quest.
That's really fascinating.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I remember you had mentioned that you had got initiation from Mahavatar Babaji himself. So can you talk a little bit about that? Was that at the same time, or was it a
This was
different?
in 1978 at the age of 21. I was a lifeguard. I had done massage, and I had been a lifeguard for 7 years on the beach, and I did massage privately. I was just beginning my career in healing, and um, I could make more money as a waiter. 7 years on the beach, 8 hours a day. It's a fun job. You meet the girls, and you're king of the beach, and it's a really fun job. But it was time for me to get a real job, and I got fired from the job. I worked a double shift, and it turns out that he said, "Can you go home and do a double?" I said, "Okay." I lived up the street. I ran up the street, took a shower, changed my clothes. I was hot and sweaty. I came down, and the guys that had told me to do a double, um, they had been embezzling from this guy. So he wanted to assert his authority, and he said, "You're fired." But God always has a plan. And a friend of mine told me, "There is something called a rainbow gathering. You should go up there." So I drove on a motorcycle all the way to Oregon from Southern California, and it was raining. The motorcycle broke down. And finally, on the 4th of July, which is a prayer gathering, I was going into this gathering. People were coming out. Hundreds of people were leaving with wet sleeping bags. It had been so rainy and soggy. They said, "Don't go. It's no good." And the guy who was taking us there on a truck said, "Don't listen to them." So I went down to the circle, and there was 500 people. They had formed a circle. And the moment I got off and put my backpack down, as I joined the circle, the Om began. And I took the deepest breath I could, and we just did this Om for about 5 minutes. I was so heartfelt and such a release for me that I got a little wobbly. And as we said the Om, about 2 minutes in, the sun cleared up right above us. A miracle. It's kind of like the American version of the Kumbh Mela, but only with 1,000 people. This was supported by the masters. I've met the Venusians there, and I've also met Babaji, and I met some other extraterrestrials there through the years. And so I go, where am I going to go? So I start walking, and this young man says, he said, the master wants to see you. And I go, he held my hand gently. He said, the master. I said, I kind of already have a master, my teacher, right? And I said, he says, the master wants to see you. And he took my hand. He looked at me like a little child pleading to his mother. I said, oh, okay, I'll go see the master. And I went into this tent, and there was a girl there sitting in lotus. I went in, and there was Mahavatar Babaji. He was very, very skinny. He looked like a boy of 18 or 19 years old. And the thing I remember about him was his hair. You know how you kind of bald, some people bald like this and the front goes back? He was kind of bald. It was a very high forehead. It went straight across like this. He was wearing green gym shorts with white trim. And I had already been taught the breath of fire. And to a certain extent, I understood the process of pranayama and, meditating and focusing on the third eye. And I was very young. I was 78. I was 21 years old, so I could get a nice big full lotus with my both feet up here. But Babaji's, his feet went behind his waist. Very skinny little boy. He didn't have really dark skin. And in the famous picture that you see of Babaji, I'll say that his nose was a little rounder. It's a little rounder. And he said, I want to show you something. I want to show you the Kriya Yoga technique. At the time, I didn't register that it was Babaji. And what he did was he put his right hand above the other one, and he sat like this, and he kind of shivered, and he went, and he rolled his eyes back in his head. Now, I was looking at his eyes, and they rolled back. His eyelids were open. And I could see that the color of his eye was gone. And guess what? They kept rolling. He was like, whoa. And I remember going, wow. So I asked him some questions about the bandhus and holding the various plexuses, each of the chakras, the root chakra, which is actually related to the endocrine gland. There's a flower in the etheric level of the chakra, and then it's related to a physical endocrine gland. So he taught me the technique of cycling the breath and doing circulating the light. And he taught me to do different counts, like you could do, and he recommended Om Namah Shivaya. So I had this meditation thing, and it was really strange because in 1976, I had read autobiography several times, and I remember there was a band in America called Supertramp, and they had a song called Babaji. Oh, and I would sing that at the heart of my lungs and just, won't you come to me, Babaji? And here he was, but he had blocked me from knowing that it was him. And it was some years later, I was reading autobiography of a yogi again. And I was at that position where Yogananda was looking around for Babaji, and there was a little saint, a sadhu, a little guy was down, "Oh, sir, can you give me alms?" And he said, "No, no, no." He was looking around. And then he looked back, and there was Babaji washing the sadhu's feet. So I'm getting chills now. And I remember I cried. I cried for 2 days, remembering that Babaji had taught me the science of Kriya Yoga. And I always have this ability and this presence, and I can get to absolute stillness. And the breath is very, very, very slow. You can't tell that you are breathing. And the science of the still breath, which Kriya Yoga is offering the in breath to the out breath. And so this is the gift that Babaji has given to the world to end the karma. I have never seen him again, but I have a picture of him, and he's a great inspiration and a great saint. And I feel very honored as a Westerner. That was my first, I will say, great teacher. I've been very fortunate in my life with many other advanced teachers, including ascended masters from Venus that I've been meeting my whole life. And Raymond and I we're close in age, and we have a lifetime mission to share the teachings of love and hope of our galactic family, because the golden age that is coming is for everyone and every religion and everything. So that's was my experience with Babaji.
Thank you for sharing that. Some of the guests have shared their experiences with Babaji, and I know this thing that he at times comes in another form, like a shapeshifter. So you don't know that it's him, but later on, then he tells that, okay, it was him, kind of.
Yeah, I read that. I saw that interview that you had, and I've been looking online, so there's other individuals who've had that experience. Yeah, for me, he was in the form of a very young boy.
Yeah. So you had mentioned about some deep spiritual experiences. Can you talk about your out of body experiences of astral travel and profound, deepest spiritual experiences that you had?
So when I met Fred Bell in 1974, there was this kind of goes into the extraterrestrial thing, and I want to share with you a book. The book is called UFO Contact from the Pleiades. There is a gentleman, and these were very famous. These contacts started in 1975, and this book came out in about 1979. But Fred Bell was having contacts with the rishis. These are the rishis in the Upanishads. These are beings that fly from a very long distance, and they decided to share their information and to let mankind know that he's not alone in the universe. So this is the Pleiades, and I'm going to get straight to the good pictures here. So these are some of the pictures of the Pleiades. And so Fred was having experiences with them, and years later, I also was having experiences. Now, the person that was researching this contact that was in it was in Switzerland. He was a one-armed farmer. He had spiritual experiences as a young boy, but he was a Colonel Wendell Stevens, and he was a guy who, whenever the spaceships would come, the government would send ships to go get them and chase them away, because they don't want people to know about the spiritual knowledge. This is the beginning of the modern day understanding. The Venusians were making contact openly with the people around the world, and we're not alone. We never have been alone and never will be alone. Many of the great ashrams in India have extraterrestrial spaceships and teachers coming there. And so I would say that it's kind of been a hidden behind the scenes. I was working as a waiter after I came back, and I was going to the beach a lot. I was surfing. I was very healthy. I was doing massage. And he would say, um, come up to the house tonight. He said, the temple is humming. So I know whenever I come in, when the master would call, I would always come up about 11 or 12 o'clock at night. I would come into the ashram. I would light incense in all four corners on the three levels of the house. And I would go and I would sit in the middle of his living room. And we had some very large pyramid systems because he had been having contacts. They were taking him up in his spaceship and giving us designs how to combine pyramids with crystals and lasers. This is an advanced technology that is working with healing and sound, light, and color. So I didn't really understand it, but I would do I would do the Kriya Yoga and certain breathing meditations, and I would find myself, they would take me out of my body. The energy in the house would shift, and I learned later that their ships would come into the building. Their ships are in a higher dimension, and they came down and they would take me out of my body. And so I was having these astral experiences where they were showing me many teachings of the esoteric nature, the nature of the soul, of the Atma, of evolution, from rocks to plants to animals to human. And they were showing me the long history of evolution and mankind's interaction with extraterrestrials. And in these astral journeys, I was shown, and I'll say they're like the Rosicrucians or the Rosy Cross, and there's many lineages that have been in contact with the extraterrestrials in our ancient and recent history, most notably in Egypt, in the Knights Templar, and various places around the world, especially in India. The great avatars have come to Earth. And of course, you know of the great being Sanat Kumara. Sanat Kumara was from Venus. He's a great master and ascended master of over 20 million years. So he has been incarnating as a world teacher and in various positions, not only on this world, but in other systems as well. So through Raymond Keller, I've learned much, much more. But my primary experiences in the early days were with that, and eventually, when we'd go outside, I'd go out late in the morning. I said, "Why are we always doing this at night?" And he said, "Rob, the astral plane, everyone is asleep. It's easier for us to do the inner esoteric work in the ashram." And we were working with the pyramids and crystals because his house was on a vortex. And so the masters were working with the natural earth energies in the cycles of the moon and the various planets to help stabilize the earth's tectonic plates and other things. But I feel very blessed that these masters have taken the time to me. And I now realize, after my conversations with the Venusians of the ascended masters, who are the security chief is 2,400 years old. He walked with Christ, and he was present as he was one of the magi at his birth. So I'm able to ask him questions to Raymond Keller, and they send me voice recorded messages. And I think what's important to know, being a Westerner, is that if I can have these experiences, anyone can. I mean, I do have past life, some history there, but what's important is it's not about the silver spaceships and the spacesuits. It's about the spiritual knowledge that's been imparted. The Shastras and the teachings, the Rig Rajur, Samaveda, the Vimalakirti, the Heart Sutra, the Buddhist teachings, all of these different teachings. When you study comparative religions, they're all the same. I myself, I'm not completely liberated. I'm like Raymond. Raymond's more advanced for sure, but I'm a postman, and they have designated me a messenger of their message, which is the same as Shirdi, Sai, Ramakrishna. Uh, all of the great teachers have taught the same thing, that God is in everyone and in everything,
Yeah.
and we must see God and treat each other correctly. So those are some of my experiences. And again, it doesn't make me better; it makes me fortunate. And what I realized from my experiences and the samadhi states that I had attained, having these miracle type interdimensional experiences where lights would follow me home and pulse outside my window. I would feel waves of love. I realized that the extraterrestrials are the key to Earth's destiny, and we have much to learn from them.
I wanted to know a little bit about that actually more.
Okay.
What extraterrestrial beings did you come in contact with, and what all dimensions or realms did you travel to? Were there other solar systems, other planets? Where did you go astrally?
Astrally, I was taken, they never presented themselves to me. It was always like there was a teacher behind me, but they were showing me, it's kind of like hieroglyphs. They're pictures, they're images. It's like little images of color, and it gave me information. And if I wanted to learn more about, they showed me like 10 images of pictures. And if I wanted to go in and learn things, like about the pyramids or something, I would go in and all this knowledge would come. I can't say that I was like I was taking a book. It's just like the information came. And I have to say, with Babaji and with Satya Sai Baba and with Fred Bell and with the Venusians, the way that I learned was through what you would call the Nada Shringa Yoga, the Shabda. When you sit in the presence of a master, you're looking at him and judging him, and all the people are bowing to him, and you can have a critical monkey mind, and but if you just realize that he is a light bulb, and it's not what he's doing, but it's the frequency. His soul, his jiva, is radiating an atma om that is causing peace for hundreds of miles, and he can be sitting there, and he can be helping a woman in a car accident. He can project himself to different times and spaces, which are, it's very difficult for us humans to understand some of the gifts that these avatars come, but they're here to um, give us inspiration that we too can attain the direct communication with God, and that in fact we already have it within us if we would just accept that. So the Nada Shringa, or the Shabda, the sound current, I had experience with Muktananda. He was a very powerful city yoga, and there's a couple miracles there with him. But I'll just say that the your frequency, your light body, there's an awareness that comes. Voices of truth come into your head. And for me, it always came down to humility and silence and reverence, the divine, the absolute perfection, and the power of love. And when you juxtapose that feeling with the chaos in the material world, you cannot help but want to do service, and to be kind and patient, and to share with people the techniques and the knowledge, but you can't push it on anyone. It's a unique experience. So my experiences out of body, I remember one time they took me to this absolutely, I think it was called the Kolob, or the Grand Central Sun. And it was just this beautiful constellation. And I was in an ecstatic samadhi state, bliss. And it was, I just glorified God, the beauty of these worlds. And then you come back in your body and you wake up, and there's sirens going by. It's very 1 foot in the heavenly realms and one on earth, and you have to stay grounded. So I've been very fortunate, and now through the grace of Dr. Raymond Keller and my face-to-face contacts with the Venusians began in the 80s. They were appearing to me, and I was having experiences. They weren't talking to me or saying who they were, but I knew who they were. They would show up. I'll just say programmed contacts, miracles. A teacher would be sent to me, and he said that I'd get a phone call from a teacher. He said the ascended master Hilarion, who is the master of the fifth ray of concrete science and knowledge, is coming, sending a teacher to you. And I said, and I know Hilarion was a master on the ray of concrete science and knowledge. The color is orange, and Fred was a master of the science of that knowledge. And each soul has a ray, love, wisdom, or you have the ray of will and power, red. You have love, wisdom, Kutumi, number 2. You have number 3, active intelligence, green. You have the heart center, the fourth ray, harmony through conflict, concrete science and knowledge, abstract idealism and devotion, which is the 6th ray. And then the 7th ray is ceremonial order and magic. So these masters have different levels of teaching, and they have there's methodologies that attract certain types of souls to bring them to God. There's the devotee, the bhakti, Hare Krishna, that they just, and Prabhupada, and they just tell you what to do. From the time you wake up, you're going to gather flowers, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Every day is a scripted service, and all the time you're thinking of God and chanting Hare Krishna. That would be the 6th ray of abstract idealism and devotion, just like the Jesus person. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. So that's abstract idealism and devotion. But I realized that in the end, the bhakti must become the yoni, and the yoni must become the bhakti. So through the science and the knowledge of understanding the science of the metaphysics of the various planes and meditation and all that knowledge, the heart has to surrender to the divine, and the heart and the divine actually has to learn how to logically and scientifically understand the workings of God's divine plan in the material world, and to see the divine plan and to work with it with a knowledge, and eventually you will be initiated into what Raymond calls the firstborn, or where you're given a mantra, and a master sponsors you, and they put their hand on your head, and you solidify, and you're given a mantra that gives you cities and stuff. So that's another level.
You talked about your association with Fred Bell, and you've been actually working from various angles, whether it's scientific as well as spiritual. And you talked about metaphysical planes as well. So if a common man were to use the tools that you use, like the pyramids or the crystals or the resonance, to get into the higher level of consciousness, how can he do that? And can you explain how many dimensions are there, how many metaphysical planes are there, and how can one go on ascending those?
In the science of theosophy, it kind of breaks it down. There's infinite number of planes and dimensions. So we look at the physical plane. That's the lowest and densest plane. And the physical plane is comprised of 7 levels. So on a scientific level, we now, because the great science of the Vyamanas and the interaction with the Devas when they used to come and interact with humans on the earth, mankind was not spiritually developed enough, and he became envious and jealous of these beings, and he wanted their technology, and that created along with some of the asuras and the materialism to allow mankind to actually destroy himself in battles and wars and use the science irresponsibly because his spiritual development had not matched his technological advancement. So it was decided 16,000 years ago. There was a great council, and they decided that no longer would the extraterrestrials, for the most part, be interacting with humans on the surface. And the reason for this was that mankind had to develop on its own without the influence of the demigods. You know, there's only one supreme personality of God, and we are all reflections of that. So the 7 levels, you have the solid, liquid, gas, ionic. So you had earth, air, water, and fire, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. Now, above that, you have the first, second, and the third ether. And this is the area of the auras and the electromagnetic field that is really how the jiva expresses itself in the body. Everything that you see in the material world is an illusion. And Maya is represented, you want to think that this is real, but it's not. There's never a perfect circle because the base divided by the height of the pyramid reaches pi, and that is a spiral. So everything, all the electrons and everything, you look at it's real, but it's really just a dance. It's like smoke. It appears real, but when you really understand it, it's constantly changing its state. It's created, it comes into form, Brahma, and it holds its state for a position, and then a Shiva, it begins to dissolve. Everything arises, preserves, and dissolves. This is known in the Christian as the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost would be the Vishnu and the changing aspect. So the physical plane, you have a physical body. So you have a jiva that exists on the 7th level. At the highest level is called the logoic plane, and that is the plane, like we'll call it sound. Everything is frequency, and you are in the image of the Creator, and the Creator in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. And so the soul is the individualized self, the individualized ego that maintains its individuality throughout all the change. So the soul goes through many lifetimes and evolution, literally spending millions and billions of years as a rock. And eventually you evolve and you become a diamond and gold. Now you've reached the highest level in the mineral kingdom. And then you would go back into the plant kingdom, and you would be a tiny little, lichen, a little plant, on some prehistoric planet. And then eventually you would evolve into a flower, a lotus flower, a tuberose, a bukkake, a jasmine, the sweet smelling flower, the essence of the plant kingdom. And then you would become an animal, and that is a group soul. So the group soul goes to a group soul, and then eventually it will reach an individualized consciousness. Now, in certain animals like elephants, dolphins, whales, cats, these are sometimes beings from other worlds that are incarnating here, and they are sentient beings more than we would know. So, and you don't go back. I mean, if you study the Hindu or the Buddhist religion, we are comprised of aggregates of consciousness, and they're called skandhas. And these are parts of your body that manifest. So if you have thoughts of slovenliness and laziness and things like that, you would become a part of your body when it dies, your astral body. Those parts would go out and be used by other beings because you are a life force held together. When you're in the body, a divine spark, masculine and feminine comes, and part of your life's evolution is built in the womb. That's a whole process whereby you develop yourself and you are in that body and you use the DNA of your parents and you create a form. And then there's different aspects of your evolution. So you have a physical body and you have an astral body, yeah, the plane of emotions. And so you have a physical body, you have an emotional body, and you have what's called a mental body or a Buddhic body. And then you have a higher Buddha, a higher Buddhic body, and a lower manas and higher manas. And then you have another causal body. And this is the plane of manifestation where your soul creates its own reality. And whether you realize it or not, where you place your thoughts and attention, you manifest in your life. So the important thing that I've learned from the masters is the science of meditation, which is one-pointed concentration. And that one-pointed concentration allows us to become masters in one field, in the silence. And the Venusians have told me there's two great techniques. One is meditation, meditare. And that comes from the Latin word wait in the middle. What do we make in the middle of? It's the cross of time and space, the in and out breath, the Mahavatar and Prayaleya. You're waiting in the middle and in the silence. And in that silence, as you move in that silence, when you do move and have a thought, it's more powerful. But mankind is so disjointed and so focused on the outer planes. So you have the astral body, you have the emotional body, and there's worlds that are astral. Everything is made on that plane. You wouldn't see them here, but you have within you all of those bodies right here. And there's a science to it, is in the electron. Let's talk about atomic physics to go into the science of the dimensions and the planes. So you have a proton and a neutron, and then you have electrons revolving around them. And everyone thinks that they're moving all the time, but they don't. They move real fast and they stop in one place and they jump around. And if you were to look closely, and we can't see there yet, but we can observe it when we look in the colliders. We can see that in the higher dimensions. So in the electrons of each atom are 49 of the anu of what I would call is the astral plane. And if we were on the astral plane and looking at those molecules, we would see 49 of the anu in the lower mental plane. And if we were on the lower mental plane and we were looking into the higher mental plane, we would see 49 anu. So it's like a Russian doll. All of these bodies exist within you. And we go into the causal plane, and then you come to the jiva, the soul, the essence of the being. And within the being and the essence, there is always the infinite creator exists within you as you. And that nature of that being is Sat Chitananda, being, awareness, and bliss. So as a mankind enters the silence and recognizes that we are all part of this, then there can be no wars. And this is where the transformation of the spiritual consciousness will come. So I'm not an expert. I have been to the astral planes, and I have had those experiences, but they were very brief. But my teacher Fred said, this is karma yoga. This is not the time to go sit in the Himalayas and meditate. Yeah. Now is the time to take action, to be working in the dharmic relationship. And so, there's a lot of, we have, let's look at God. God is one point. So God is sitting by himself. He's all alone. And he separates himself into two. And when he separates himself, at the same time, he becomes the Trinity. He becomes Brahma, Vishnu. So this is kind of like a philosophical sacred geometry progression of the way that God manifests itself. And we could think we know everything about it, and it's just words. We're just trying to cloak our ignorance about God in pompous expression. We can experience him and we can feel the bliss, you know, but you know, it's kind of interesting. So um, you have these seven planes like a rainbow, and they're all within you. And as you learn, eventually you will leave the earth and you will be born on what Raymond calls a celestialized sphere. And then there's no more crying, no more pain, no more tears, no more death. You will not have the illusion of death. You will evolve and you will realize, and then you will ascend to a higher plane. And when you reach your learning there, you'll go elsewhere. So it's a constant state of evolution and growth, and the universe is teeming with life. And so that's a little of the science of the dimensionality. And on my website, in Dr. Bell's books, he has all the math and the images.
Yeah, wonderful. Talked about your encounters with extraterrestrial beings and higher beings. And you mentioned that you have some photographs and some audios of message from Venus. So can you show us the photos and play us the audio if possible?
Here's a very famous picture of some Venusians. This gentleman, this picture is taken in New Jersey in 1957. This gentleman landed and went to the White House, and I met this gentleman in 1982. I met him with another man and a woman again at a rainbow gathering in 2003. And this woman is his wife. And I met her at a meeting that was put on by this person, Dr. Frank Strange's. He used to go on board the ships. And I want to mention that they look just like us. And it's, you know, it's easier for a higher dimensional being to appear to you, an ascended master. And when they come here, they're not here to show off in a silver spacesuit and show their technology and the spaceships and, oh, I'm a great being. They're here and they look just like us. So now these two beautiful women, this woman was born in Hardiwar, 1885. I think it was in 1935. She was working with the British East India Company. They dematerialized and went to Venus. She became a dual citizen. Now this woman went to India, into Hardiwar, Lakshman Jula, Badrinath, in that area, and was helping. I believe is that Andhra Pradesh region. Anyway, she was up there, and she was in the Great Depression. I mean, it was bad in America, but India, my God, the poverty and the problems. And she went to serve next to this woman, and they were helping the people. The American Christian socialist movement was providing food and clothing and medicine, and they worked together serving. And she was taken to Venus in 1957, and she began to work with the Venusians. But we can see how they serve the earth and how they work behind the scenes to uplift mankind and to ease his suffering and to teach him the teachings of Christ, which is to serve one another and to see God.
I have one question.
Yes.
You mentioned that they were there in the 1950s, and this photograph mentions this is June 2017. They came again to congratulate Ray. So, do they never age, or how is it?
Well, they do age when they're on the earth. When they ascend, they have a technology that is like an ascension technology, and they can make a new body for you when you die. And I could show you that image if you want. That's another more esoteric teaching of how they create new bodies for you. And you would die. Before this woman on the left died, they came down 2 days before she went to sleep to die, they put something on the head and they downloaded her memories. She had
Oh,
lived on the moon base for 4 years, from 1957 to 1960, working in the Venusian Angel Force. And so they already had her DNA, so they made her a new body, and when she died, she woke up on the moon base in a brand new, young, beautiful body. So that is a form of ascension called translation. There's another form of ascension where you can die and your body dies, and then you wake up on a higher dimensional world, and you don't have to incarnate on the earth. So these
right.
women are advanced. These are Mahatmas.
You mentioned about two types of ascension. One is that you get your body once again, your body dies, and you get your body once again. And another is you, in this body itself, you go to higher dimension. So when we know that our earth itself is ascending now, and all of us are moving into higher vibration, so, what is exactly going to happen? Are we going to move with our bodies, or we are going to get new bodies, or do you have any information about that?
That's another teaching. So the earth is not ascending to the fifth dimension anytime soon. When you look at our world, the hate, the ignorance, the violence, the materialism, this is the end of an age. This is we're moving into a golden age, not the Treta Yuga, not the Satya Yuga, not the Kali Yuga, not the Dwapara Yuga. We're moving into a new Maha Yoga, a new Maha cycle, a grand, grand, grand cycle of millions of years. The entire universe is evolving, and it evolves as a giant light that comes from the center of the consciousness of God throughout all the galaxies, and then to the center of each galaxy there's a crater of each galaxy, and a flash goes out and it goes through the various suns, and it transforms the life streams and the nature of nature itself. The laws of physics and everything will be changing. Now, anyone could ascend to an ascended master in any lifetime. And we've heard many stories of Babaji and many great saints appearing and people disappearing and having a body. The teachings of God had been lost. And so the earth had defaulted. And that's a more of a political thing with the fall of the Asuras. And that's another story. Anyone can ascend. And these particular women, and many people, you included, are on your last lifetime. And I can play a message where the Queen of Venus will talk about that because there's going to be great changes. So as we move through the solar system, different energies hit the planet. Astrology is valid because the magnetics of the time of your birth, the genetics of your birth, your karma, where you're born, the nature of your environment affects your body. So the science of the planets and magnetics are influence how you're thinking, and when you become enlightened, then the planets don't influence you. You are the captain of your own ship. And as you make your way in life, as you rise beyond your karma and you begin to act as a teacher and you help other people understand the limitations of their orientation into the material world and to ascend their mind into the higher spiritual realms where we don't focus on material things. So that's one form of ascension.
Yeah, so can you please talk about the ascension process on Venus?
So the Venusians, in their world, we would call it a celestialized sphere. Everyone, every soul on that planet has already ascended to a position where they recognize themselves as God. They're very kind and they're connected. Their society is patterned after the bees, and that's a whole nother story. It could we could you could talk to Raymond about how they were taken over and stuff like that. But um, as I said before, the higher dimensional beings can come here. They can be in a higher world that you can't see them, and they can lower their vibration. It's difficult for us to go there. They can augment you. So if you're picked up in a spaceship and you're on their craft, they can connect you to your higher self, and you can be risen to a position. For instance, this man here, when he would go on board the craft, he didn't have to wear his glasses. He sounded like a young man. He called me from a spaceship once. He sounded like a young man. And so it's just kind of a secret world that they want us to know about. And through Raymond, I've been entrusted to act as a postman. It doesn't make me any better than you or anyone. But my past lifetimes and my experiences, I have the knowledge and the understanding of how this works, and so I can explain it to you, so that it's something that we can all aspire to have contact with these great teachers. And this is what is happening for the planet. But as I said before, the planet's not ascending anytime soon. I asked them, and they said, sadly, your planet's not ascending anytime soon. But I'm going to tell you some of the great changes that are coming. So the planet is now moving through an area of space, and the Venusians told the man here to talk to an astronomer. They said, tell him to look up here. They gave him coordinates, and he looked and he said, what do you see? He said, I see a giant hydrogen cloud. And they wanted him to research what would happen, because in the future, in 1972, it was 28 years later that the Earth and the entire solar system would start going through that cloud. Now, we know that the Earth has an ionosphere. We have an atmosphere. All planets have atmospheres, even the moon you can breathe on. There's gravity. Venus is lighter than us, and Venus rotates in the opposite direction. Venus takes 119 days of darkness and 119 days of light. So a lot of changes. And the Earth is very rich and verdant in physical life. Now, when they look at the Earth going through this hydrogen cloud, he said, wow, it's going to get very hot. Now, when you think of all the science fiction movies, the temperature in outer space, like they get a little hole in the helmet and they turn into a popsicle. They freeze. But that's true. Normally, the area between all the planets, all the way out to Pluto, is freezing, absolute zero, 270 degrees below zero. But not anymore, because we're going through a hydrogen cloud. That is causing what we would call solar warming. Now, if you look at the pictures of Pluto, 30 years ago, it had an ice cap. Now Pluto has no ice cap, it's melted. And our ice caps are melting too, because we're going through this high temperature area. It's 10,000 degrees outside the Earth's atmosphere. Now, there are normal cycles of solar flares where the sun is reacting, and it's causing changes. It causes changes to life on the planet and weather cycles and all of these things. And because mankind has had nuclear power, the pollution, or killing life on the planet, the electromagnetic radiations are not happy with us. So they're causing great electromagnetic changes, and the government knows it, and they're calling it solar warming or global warming, because they want to control you. You can't do this, you can't do that. The government, you have to, if you don't follow what we say, we're going to control you. You're not going to be able to drive. You can't have food. You can't have water. That's not going to happen. That's the Asura plan. But right now, God has made provisions for the changes. So what happens is when those solar flares come now, they're causing stripping away, and more cosmic rays are hitting the Earth. It's going to cause a lot of heating up of the atmosphere. It's going to cause crop failures. There's going to be locusts, like in the Bible. The times of tribulations are here, and this is going to change. And it's a natural cycle. It's not a karma. It's not God punishing us. It's part of the process of evolution. And it's not only the end of an age, it's the beginning and the end of a civilization. Therefore, God is going to change the face of the earth. There will be earthquakes, and there are going to be some other things coming. So what is coming in the terms of the ascension is that, because many people are on their last lifetime, as these solar flares increase at various points on the earth, there will be earthquakes, there will be famines, there will be things like this. So it is important that mankind comes together. Just like when you can see a hurricane is coming, everyone must get the sandbags. We must prepare. We must start building huge structures that can build food that will not be affected by temperature. We must prepare for earthquakes. And I'm going to tell you that in 2029, an asteroid will come between the Earth and the Moon. NASA has announced that it's called Apophis, and they say it's going to be 20,000 miles away, but the Venusians have told Raymond it's only 450 miles above our Earth. Now, you have a 1 mile chunk of iron, an asteroid. What do you think is going to happen when that comes this close to the Earth? It's probably carrying other little particles and rocks that are going to come and hit the Earth. It's going to take out satellites. And the heat, my God, the heat. When those solar flares come, when that asteroid, it's prophesied in Moses' time, the waters turned red when the Pharaoh wouldn't let him go. And this was because there was a similar time, and the heat caused the algae in the waters to die. And the algae is where the earth gets its oxygen. The prana comes from the oceans. Also trees, also thunderstorms, and water meeting air. So we're going to have problems with oxygen. We're going to have problems with pestilence and famines. So they hope that we can rise to the occasion and learn the message of love and hope instead of fighting each other and arguing. I'm reminded of Gandhi movie. He says, I am a Christian, I am a Hindu, I am a Muslim, and so are all of you. And then they killed him, right? So we have to recognize that you can't, there's no reason for the Muslims to hate the Jews and the Jews to hate the Christians and the Hindus to hate, the fighting amongst ourselves is ridiculous. So we have to realize this as a planet and as a people and move forward. Let me tell you.
Saying that there's going to be an end of the world in 2029, or how?
A great change. Great changes are coming. They're going to get worse and worse, and I'm going to play you the message of the Queen of Venus. You can listen to it.
Can you please play it? Yeah.
I'm going to play. I'll play that, and I think letting them speak for themselves is a good thing to hear. So I'm gonna play some images, and I'm going to show some pictures of the Venusians. Why her message is being played. Okay. And I ask her questions, and they send me messages. And for my conferences, they send me a message. And this message was given in 2023.
Wow. Okay.
Dear friends of Venus and light workers assembled at Mount Shasta in Northern California this 22nd day of June 23rd for the opening ceremonies of the 23 Summer Conference, The New Spiritual Paradigm, Angels and Extra-terrestrials in the Multidimensional Universe. This is the Queen, Lady Order of Abahar, the planet of abiding love that you know as Venus, speaking to you from a safe house situated somewhere on the East Coast of the United States. I consider it a great honor for me to address you today. In the coming days, you will interact with many ascended souls touching your spirit to activate both a personal and collective transformation of consciousness, advancing you to yet higher levels of awakening and understanding. We have taken good note that many of you have already expressed your appreciation to Commander Valiant Thor, Alan, Lady Columba, Lady Aurora, Commander Aura Reigns, Dr. Frank E. Stranges, our historian Publius Virgilius Morrow, our ambassador Onek, Helen and Betty Mitchell, Sister Thedra, Lady Ankara, and many others so dear to my heart, those of our angelic forces of light, for granting you access to night classes aboard our Victor class, cloaked and ethereal star vessels in orbit above our planet. We are also pleased that so many of among you have already recognized your callings and missions in preparing your fellow beings of Earth for overcoming the obstacles that are surely headed to your planet in the difficult days ahead, long foretold by the avatars and prophets sent among you since the beginning of recorded history. You, dear brothers and sisters in the light, are the fulfillment of the prophecy written by the Apostle Luke to the General Assembly of the Church of the Firstborn in Acts 2:16, which reads as follows: "And it shall come to pass in the last days, saith God, I will pour out of my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams." Now, I feel at this point that I should say something to you about angels, since that's the theme of this most special conference. Your understanding of just who and what angels are is limited by the religious constructs imposed on you since birth. Apart from the atheists or agnostic, however, most believers in God and a hereafter can acknowledge the existence of a heaven or pleroma populated with both some of our dearly departed ones and a class of highly evolved spiritual beings commonly referred to as the angels. The word angel is derived from the Greek angelos, which simply signifies messenger. In the Bible, Standard King James Version, we find a compilation of 66 books consisting of 39 in the Old Testament and 27 in the New Testament. We know that angels, therefore, are important insofar as they are mentioned 273 times in 34 of these 66 books. And in all of these references, we find angels always presented in the context of being otherworldly visitors of a primarily spiritual nature, but the ability to appear to humans, in most instances, in a form similar to that of the human body, with slight variations. Reverend Dr. Frank E. Strange, who lived on Earth from the period of 1927 to 2008, and now resides in the crystal city of Azure on Venus, was once director of the International Evangelism Crusade of Venusians, California, and a globally recognized authority of the subjects of extraterrestrial life and flying saucers. He now wants you to know that there are at least 4 classes of angels serving the inhabitants of the earth for various reasons: messenger angels, ministering angels, guardian angels, and reaper angels. These otherworldly entities frequently show up in the lives of human beings during their times of special need. Perhaps they will come to you in order to bring you safely through some distressing or dangerous situation, or perhaps to warn you of coming trials or catastrophe ahead. But in most cases, an angel will come to bring you words of spiritual knowledge, delivering secrets of the celestial realms, essential for your physical or spiritual salvation and eventual exaltation. Of course, these angels bring all of us such cosmic gnosis, not of their own accord, but as directed by the Father of Lights. And then There is one classification of angels that long ago lost their privilege of serving humankind. These are the following ones. About 1/3 of the hosts of heaven that came from all four of these aforementioned categories of celestial servants, but put themselves in rebellion to the creator of the universe and were, as a result of their defiance toward God, ousted from heaven. These are the ones you have to look out for, my friends, as they are lurking in all the dark corners of your world, ready to pounce on you like a roaring lion. In a previous message imparted to you by our beautiful Clarion Moon-based commander, Aura Reigns, she told you of the COVID pandemic, that it was but a foreshadowing of the pale horse prophecy in the Apostle John's revelation given from the Isle of Patmos in the year 99 of your common era. This was a direct sign that we are approaching the predicted 7-year period of tribulation, granting assurance to you, the saints of God in these later days, that the reaping angels are standing by to whisk you away to super Earth's paradise worlds now being prepared for you in the Sirius star system, a celestial incubator. And all of this in order that you be saved from alarm and danger when approaching the predicted 7-year period of tribulation, granting assurance to you, the saints of God in these later days, that the reaping angels are standing by to whisk you away to super Earth's paradise worlds now being prepared for you in the Sirius star system, a celestial incubator. And all of this in order that you be saved from alarm and danger when the 4 horsemen will ride across the sky and the blast of the 7 angels' trumpets will announce the pouring out of the vials of plagues and destruction upon the earth, such as have not been seen since the days of the prophets Noah and Moses. It's very important to act while there is still time. About these angels, they also appear to herald the birth of very important figures, or even those who would be emerging on the scene. Sometimes they would come to caution the world about an enemy who could potentially threaten it. There is another scripture from the book of Revelation, chapter 14, verses 6-7, which has great importance in our day. It reads as follows: "And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters." This will be the last call, the last chance for many to escape in the rapture of the saints, the terrible calamities coming as foretold in the remainder of chapter 14. Do not hesitate to sound the voice of warning throughout the land. These visitors have been appearing since the beginning of time. If you go back into ancient history, you will find that in many cultures and civilizations all around the world, there is evidence of otherworldly visitors with wings who would come to speak with important figures on earth in whom they felt could help them in carrying out the contents of their messages. The wings, of course, quote unquote, are representative of this being's ability to fly. Overall, we know that there were messengers that came throughout time. And I will let you in on a little 4th dimensional Venusian secret. These angels also came to earth in and out of time. There was no partiality shown in the deliverance of the message geographically or spiritually. And so, do you want to know who is that angel flying in the midst of heaven? You, the light worker, are that angel. In fact, you were called to be an angel before you were ever incarnated on the earth plane. And that is your calling, dear one, to be a messenger of the light and spread the gospel or good news of the coming degrees of glory and exaltation that await each and every child of God should they step up into that marvelous light. And please keep in mind Dr. Frankie Strange's and Lady Ankara's favorite verse, Hebrews 13:2, which clearly explains each and everyone's highest calling on Earth's material plane. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. Exercising kindness is the key that unlocks the door to celestial riches, both abundant and eternal. Hold on to your heads, dear ones. We are all in for a real roller coaster ride in the next decade. This is the Queen, Order of Abahar. Thank you for your kind attention.
So I have many other messages like that. And so from that message, what we learn, if you pay attention, is that there are changes coming. And the Bible never uses the word rapture, but they have told me that they've told the people at my events previously, if you are at one of my events, you're awakened. I mean, I'm going to say many of the people at the Kumbh Mela who have that spiritual calling are awakened. I mean, there's a lot of, that's a real wild show there. People who in their hearts are connected to God will be evacuated. This is something they do all the time. They can evacuate worlds with billions of people. There are motherships and transports. They did this in Atlantis, and they did it in the book number 5. So what they do is they come in the evening, right before the big cataclysm. They take people. A lot of people will be taken, and then as things move forward, they'll take another wave of people. Those who have reached their last lifetime, you have come. You've already been an ascended soul. You came to Earth to serve a spiritual mission. You are a teacher. You are helping people to understand the mysteries of God. And yes, it's just a science, but it's born from a compassionate place of love and from your knowledge of the importance of God in your life. So many people, and she said, you are the angels. You are the ones who will have your memories restored. Coming next year, there's going to be something happening. The next year is the year of resurrection and liberation. And Raymond has told me something's going to change on the entire planet and the earth will never be the same. Could this be a giant solar flare that many people will have past life memories? Many people may be taken up, have contacts. What is coming, I don't know. But the earth is going to have to go through the awakening of the lies of the government, of the corruption of the politicians, of the religious hucksters, the greedy financiers, and the bellicose militarists, those schemers in finances who want to scheme and take money from their fellow man and to keep other people in poverty. And it's going to be harder for a rich man to get into heaven than it will be for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. So all those people who have the $1 million homes and 15 cars and they're on yachts, you don't take that with you. You have not helped the homeless people, the poor people starving on the streets. If I had $1 million, I would do something. I mean, I wouldn't get myself 10 cars, a house on the beach, and I wouldn't get the best tickets at a football game and walk by a homeless person who's on the street. Mankind must realize the brotherhood of man and the service that we have to recognize that we're all one. And that is not a culture on earth that exists. So this cleansing, the earthquakes, these things are going to come not everywhere all at once. But if you're guided by the Spirit of truth in certain areas, like I have to say, I really love, Rishikesh and Lakshman Jula, the little bridge there, the monkeys, and it's so sweet. The ashrams and the spiritual vibration in that area is very high. And there's many other places in the world, and they don't know anything about Buddhism, Muslim, Christians. They're living pure, simple lives. They're food and they're serving their fellow man. You don't have to belong to a religion to be a chosen people, a chosen person. The chosen people choose themselves by their connection to God. So these evacuations will occur, and this will be your last lifetime. You will ascend to planetoids, asteroids, moons, space platforms. Maybe you came from Sirius. There's a big Sirius mothership, and you're going to wake up there. Your memories will be restored. You will meet your son, and you will be in a fifth dimension, a higher dimension. Some people will go to the sixth dimension of Venus. Some people may be taken to Sirius or back to Arcturus, and they will come back after the Earth goes through some changes to help mankind through the next 50 or 100 years, when the bigotry is gone, when the judgment, when the hatred, when the condemnation, and all the things that the way we have treated each other, when people get to their knees and realize that God's power is great. And when she said fear God, she meant fear nature and the way that we've abused and destroyed life. You know, you don't have to force everyone to become a vegan, but we've gone out of control. So eventually the planet will, just by the nature of the science of food, will become vegetarian. We will have very advanced technologies where the most high quality food can be taken in a drink and will make us feel like Superman. So these little secrets that have been hidden from us, the free energy that will keep us from enslaving and working and toil, we will have these beautiful cities. We will create a garden on the earth. We will turn all of the armaments into plowshares. The world will become a celestialized sphere. It's going to take time, and it's going to get worse before it gets better, because right now everyone is watching television. And if you listen to, oh my God, the politicians, I don't vote. It's just crazy land. All they want is to kill you, and they never do anything good. So be aware that many things are going to change in your life, including access to clean water. So we must come together locally in our communities to prepare to work together and to help those less fortunate. And as we do that, we will garner a place in the higher dimensions. So we've been here for many, many cycles of lifetimes, and we've done our mission. We don't have to go through the karma of the suffering of those people who have been enmeshed in materialism. We have had both Mahatmas and lower souls here, and it's time for them the wheat and the chaff to separate, and those souls will die. It's not punishment, but they're going to go on to a better life. I always thought maybe they would take some people off who aren't very advanced, and they'll just be taken off and they'll be put on the earth, and they'll remember things, but they won't remember all the trauma. And they'll be put on a new earth that's beautiful and clean, and they can kind of start over and learn a new society. I think the possibilities are endless. So with that, I want to thank you for your kindness to have me on today, to allow me to share these messages. And there's wonderful teachings that are contained in Raymond's books and on my website, and the messages and all of these things are available for people.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been amazing, and you stayed up for so long. So thank you so much.
Oh,
I really appreciate it. I usually have one rapid fire for all my guests, so I'll start with that. If you were to explain multidimensional soul to a common man, how would you explain it?
I would say that we're not alone, never have been alone, and never will be alone, and that the universe is infinite. And what we think and we know and we see and we perceive with our senses is not everything. That there is a spirit and a higher realm, and the whisperings of spirit must have an open heart. So stop thinking you know everything and have wonderment and innocence of a child, and you will see and you will experience the multidimensional universe.
Beautiful. What is holistic well-being to you?
Holistic means whole. And that's the word come heal. To understand completely the nature of the body and the soul. And this includes the teachings of the chakras, the meridians, the skandhas, the pittas, all the different actions of air, water, fire, and how they run in the body. So healing is understanding the nature of the universe and living in accordance with God laws. And it's very difficult because we have created a polluted world.
What is love according to you? Sorry.
All you need is love, baby. Love lifts you up where you belong. Love is a many splendored thing. Love is all you need.
Okay.
So, the greatest power in the universe is love.
What is self-love?
I guess when you say self-love, I think it would be recognizing that you first must be responsible to be healed or whole, or to love you and forgive yourself before you can love and heal others. So self-love is important in that you manage your energies in the omniverse. A mother, cannot, feed her child if she's, it's very difficult for single mothers when they're struggling to keep a roof over the head, to have milk, to keep food, shelter, and clothing. So to self-love yourself, and then you will at the same time love others.
What is the ultimate purpose of life according to you?
Well, I think the purpose of life is to grow in service of love to your fellow man and to know God, to realize that life is a school and that you cannot explain God, you cannot control God, you can experience the joy and the bliss of God, and that the purpose of life is to keep an open mind and to not judge and to be helpful to others, to serve others. By serving others, you ascend quicker.
Okay. And do you have any parting message for our audience?
Have a daily practice of meditation. Become humble. Look at the world. And don't be distracted by the things, and realize what you see in the air, the water, the food, the media. There's a lot of materialism, and this is an illusion, and we have created it collectively. We've had people manipulating us to focus on that. And I would say that let us focus on the spiritual presence of God within ourselves, and to be kind to others, and to be patient, to speak softly with more self-control, and to not allow anger to rise in our hearts, but allow compassion and forgiveness for yourself and for others.
It's so beautiful. And how can people connect with you?
They can connect with me on my website, The Promise Revealed, REVEALED.net. And I have a Facebook, I have Instagram, I have YouTube channels. You can look up on YouTube, Rob Potter public page, or Baba Rob God. I'm the only Baba Rob God. A friend of mine goes, "You're like Baba Rob God." So Baba, BABA Rob God, and you can find my YouTube channel. And there's many of these messages, many interviews, more videos, more recordings on my website. You can hear the Venusian messages of the ascended masters, and they said to let their message speak for themselves. I am but a messenger entrusted to share the message of hope, love, peace, and right living. So I'm just honored to be able to do that. Thank you.
Yes, I am so honored to have you here. And we will give all the links of your website, your YouTube channel, Facebook, everything in the video description on our YouTube channel. It's been a privilege having you as a guest on my podcast. Thank you so much. Lovely to have you.
It's been an honor. And if you want to hear next time, maybe we could just hear some other messages. If your audience likes it, if they want to ask questions, if you ever do a live one, we could simply put messages they could ask questions, and just hear their words and what they say, and let people think what that means for themselves. They're amazing energy when you meet them. They're so happy. They're so high, and they don't look over 30. They never change. So they're very fortunate. They're Mahatma souls, and they're here in service to us. So and realize, if it can happen to me, God's sakes, it can happen to you. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you for watching and listening in wherever you are in the world. As Ramdas says, that we all are just walking each other home. So thank you for co-creating the new earth along with me and our guests. And if you resonate with me, do subscribe to my channel and do let us know how you find our episodes. Thank you so much. Lots of love.